It's a weekend morning, you have a hot cup of coffee, you open your favorite streaming app to watch your absolute ultimate comfort anime, and there's just a blank gray box. The show is gone.
Just completely vanished.
Right. You pay your $15 a month for infinite access. You look at that endless grid of thumbnails and you think you have the largest media library in human history right at your fingertips. But what if I told you that you own absolutely nothing?
Because you don't. I mean, structurally, you really don't.
Exactly. What if the industry is quietly, systematically erasing the history of the medium while you sleep, and you're actually paying them to do it? So today, we're talking about the profound psychological whiplash of realizing you have no control over your digital.
It's a total illusion. We've bought into this idea of the cloud as permanent, benevolent vault, when in reality, it's a highly volatile corporate ledger. We assume the Digital Library of Alexandria is open 24/7, but we are completely blind to its underlying fragility.
Okay, let's unpack this, because our mission for this deep dive is to strip away the frictionless convenience of the modern streaming era and expose the hidden, frankly terrifying structural trade-offs beneath it.
And we should clarify, this isn't just some cranky condemnation of technology, right? It's a critical audit of what structural power we surrender when physical property becomes a secondary concern.
Yeah, and the grounding material we're looking at today comes from a really thought-provoking transcript exploring a YouTube video by Magical Jill. It's titled, "We're Losing More Anime Than You Think."
And what's really interesting is the catalyst for her video. It wasn't some massive industry collapse. It was just a standard retail link going live for a physical Blu-ray pre-order of the new Dragon Ball Daima.
Oh, wow. Just a pre-order link.
Yeah. Just the simple act of seeing a tangible plastic product available for a brand new show sparked this entire existential audit of where the medium is at.
Right, because seeing a new physical release almost feels like a glitch in the matrix nowadays. It forces you to stop and realize how accustomed we've become to just, renting access. So to understand why anime disappears, we first need to break down the deeply flawed modern consumer psychology regarding digital ownership.
Right. The user interface of every major streaming platform is specifically engineered to foster that illusion. They use phrases like my library or purchased.
Yeah, my watch list.
Exactly. It creates a psychological sense of localized ownership, but the legal reality is entirely different.
Let me throw an analogy at you to see if this captures it.
Yeah.
Imagine you buy a season pass to a world-class art museum to view a specific painting on loan. You go every Sunday, it becomes part of your routine.
Your comfort watch, basically.
Right. Then one day, the exhibit moves to another country. You don't throw a screaming tantrum in the lobby, right? Because you paid for entry, not the asset, never owned the canvas.
That analogy perfectly isolates the disconnect. Because if we look back at the internet's reaction when The Office left Netflix a few years ago, the public response, wild, millions of people were having these visceral territorial meltdowns online.
Oh, it was everywhere. People were furious.
They reacted as if an executive broke into their home and put a tangible DVD box set into a wood chipper.
Yeah, people felt genuinely robbed.
But they only felt robbed because they operated under the assumption that a $9 fee granted them permanent ownership. Before that Tuesday, they didn't care about licensing agreements. But when you stream anime, you're just renting real-time access to data packets on a remote server.
Hold on, though. I want to play devil's advocate here for a second. If I take a physical Blu-ray off my shelf and look at the fine print on the back, it says I only own a license for private home viewing. Can't broadcast it. So legally, aren't streams and discs the exact same thing?
What's fascinating here is that, yes, technically, under copyright law, they are both licensed, but that argument completely ignores the physical mechanism.
Okay, how so?
Well, the physical disc itself, the polycarbonate plastic, the aluminum layer, the microscopic data pits, the physical object is your tangible prop protected by the first sale doctrine.
So the vessel is the asset.
Precise. To revoke that physical license, a media corporation would have to obtain legal cause, travel to your house, and physically cross the threshold of your home to prop.
Which is obviously never going to happen. They can't just beam a signal and melt the plastic.
Right. But digital streaming fundamentally alters that because DRM, or digital rights management. Every single time you press play, your device sends what we call a digital handshake across the internet.
Like it's asking for permission.
Exactly. It pings a remote server asking, am I authorized to decrypt this file? If a contract expired at midnight, the company just changes a database variable. The server denies the handshake, and you are instantly locked out.
So the physical disk is literally the only unbreakable barrier against corporate erasure. If you don't hold the plastic, you have zero leverage.
None. 100% of the distribution power stays with the corporation. And that leads to a rather grim reality. If the physical disk is the only unbreakable barrier, why are massive studios actively denying fans the ability to...
Yeah, if there's money on the table, why aren't they taking it? The source material brings up an incredibly frustrating situation, Sailor Moon. It's baffling. You can buy physical copies of the 90s series, right?
Yes, and the Crystal reboot.
Right. But the final narrative chapters, the Eternal and Cosmos movie, have a literal distribution wall built around them. No official physical release exists outside Japan.
Those final chapters essentially do not exist in the physical realm for West. If you want to watch the conclusion of a story you physically own the beginning of, you are forced into the streaming ecosystem.
So why build that wall? Fans are waving their wallets around.
To understand that, we have to take you inside the silent corporate boardrooms where things are made. Let's break down the raw supply chain. Imagine two paths for distribution, Path A and Path...
Okay, Path A is the physical release, right?
Right. Path A is a logistical nightmare. You have the upfront capital of pressing hundreds of thousands of discs, printing cardboard slipcovers, securing cargo ships across the Pacific, and negotiating retail margin.
Which sounds incredibly expensive before you've even sold a single copy.
It is. And crucially, it introduces the specific financial hazard of reverse logistics.
Wait, reverse logistics, what is that?
Retailers like big box stores don't buy inventory outright. They lease shelf space. If those Blu-rays don't sell, the retailer ships the unsold inventory back. The studio pays to ship it back, warehouse the dead stock, or literally pay a liquidator to destroy the plastic.
Oh, wow. So they actively lose money on the back end.
Yes, it's capital intensive and highly risky. Now consider Path B. A streamer walks into the boardroom and offers a straightforward proposition. A $10 million upfront minimum guarantee for 5 years of exclusive global rights.
So just a flat check.
Exactly. Zero manufacturing, zero shipping, zero risk.
So what does this all mean? For a risk-averse executive, the decision is made before the meeting even starts. They take the streamer's money.
Every single time. The physical media boom of the early 2000s is permanently over because the underlying economic incentives have completely inverted.
Okay, so the studios take the guaranteed streaming cap. That makes business. But what happens to you, the viewer, when the servers fail? Like when that 5-year exclusivity contract expires and the algorithm decides the show isn't driving enough new subscriptions to justify a renewal.
That is the precise moment the digital illusion collapses. And the most devastating historical precedent for this involves an IP you would assume is totally immune to being lost.
Right, the lost years of Pokémon. This blew my mind. You'd think the highest grossing multimedia franchise in history would be immaculately preserved. But for a long stretch of time, the foundational chunk of the historical Pokémon anime seasons 1, 2, and 3 was just agonizingly difficult to watch legally.
It fell into a fractured licensing void. The options were a maze of dead ends.
Yeah, let's trace those. Option 1, hope to catch a fragmented 6 a.m. cable syndication. Option 2, the shattered streaming ecosystem. One random season on Netflix, a different non-sequential one on Hulu.
There was absolutely no unified digital library.
Right. And option 3, unaffordable out-of-print, which forced millions of people into the gray market and piracy just to watch the bedrock of their childhood.
It proved streaming is a remarkably unreliable custodian of our history. But this raises an important question. Preservation isn't just about legal access. It's about watching the historically accurate. Who controls the master file?
Oh, this is where things get genuinely frustrating. We have to talk about the unending archival war over Dragon Ball Z physical release. There are so many, the Dragon boxes, the orange bricks, the 30th anniversary editions.
And the reason fans fiercely debate these because every release represents a drastically different technological approach to ultra.
Let's break down the technical erasure. Start with aspect ratios. Early Dragon Ball Z was composed for 4:3 cathode ray tube TV. They were square. The animators framed every shot for that specific box.
But modern living rooms have 16:9 widescreen, and corporate executives assume modern consumers hate black bars on the sides of the screen.
But you can't magically invent new hand-drawn animation on the sides of a 30-year-old frame.
No, you can't. So they use a corporate digital scalpel. They literally crop 20% off the top and bottom to force the square into a rectangle. They are severing the tops of characters' heads just to appease a modern display method.
That is so destructive. And it goes beyond cropping. They artificially boost saturation, wash out skin tones. But the worst part, and we have to talk about this, is digital noise reduction, or DNR.
Yes, physical film stock inherently holds grain. It consists of microscopic silver halide crystals that react to light.
And grain isn't dirt. It's not a mistake.
Exactly. It's a chemical reality that gives traditional animation its texture. But studios run the raw footage through automated DNR algorithms designed to mathematically scrub out static.
But the algorithm is blunt. It scrubs out intentional, delicate hand-drawn ink lines. It leaves characters looking like smeared, waxy plastic.
It views the organic film grain as an error to be erratic. Every physical release of Dragon Ball Z, different cocktail.
So imagine a future where physical media is totally erratic. A single streaming monolith holds the exclusive key. Which version do they upload?
Only the one the marketing department deems the most sanitized and commercially viable. Your ability to choose between visual eras...
It's like George Lucas's heavily criticized Star Wars special editions. That is the perfect mainstream. He added bizarre CGI, changed who shot first, altered the lighting. Physical media aging VHS tapes and Laserdisc is the absolute only way the original grimy Mos Eisley Cantina survives the digital alteration.
A robust physical ecosystem decentralizes the archive. It lets the consumer bypass the corporate model.
But the collateral damage of moving entirely to the cloud doesn't stop at the edges of the television. We are systematically erasing the recorded human history of the medium. We're losing the background context.
Let's examine the archival value of bonus feature. Take the physical release of Full Metal Alchemist, Conqueror of Shambhala. It included hours of unvarnished interviews with the anime.
And these aren't just disposable fluff pieces. They capture the raw atmosphere of the studio.
The cigarette smoke, the cell paint, the exhaustion, and it captures the voices of creators who have since retired or sadly passed. You cannot mathematically recreate those human insights with an algorithm.
And streaming platforms fundamentally lack the infrastructure and, frankly, the financial desire to host niche documentaries that don't drive new subs. But here's where it gets really interesting. Physical media actually generated new lore.
Yes, the Full Metal Alchemist, the sacred star of my list.
Right. The physical release generated an entirely new, extensive lore documentary narrated in character by Roy Mustang. It was brand new canonical storytelling, exclusively bundled with the plastic disc.
Just like the Lord of the Rings extended appendices, a masterclass in documenting film history.
But let me ask a logical question.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't a modern studio just upload these lore videos to YouTube as a viral marketing tool, or put them under a Trailers and More tab on Netflix?
Because streaming lacks the financial engine to fund it. YouTube views pay fractions of a cent. Would those Lord of the Rings appendices have been greenlit if the movies were just dumped on a server? Absolutely not.
Right. To secure a production budget for a documentary crew, you need a revenue stream. The physical market was the only economic engine that funded this content. They had to engineer exclusive extra value to convince consumers to spend $30 on a movie they already saw.
Without physical sales, these historical documents simply have no economic reason to exist. They will never be commissioned again.
That is so bleak. We're dismantling the actual engine of creation. So if physical media is our only localized backup and it funds historical preservation, why are average fans walking away from it?
Because of the gentrification of anime, physical collecting has transformed into a prohibitively expensive luxury hobby.
The golden era of casually buying a $15 DVD at Best Buy is totally dead.
It's dead because the mass market migrated to streaming. Volume dropped off a cliff, so distribution companies had to shift their crosshairs. They started targeting a much smaller but wealthier demographic of hardcore collectors.
The scarcity trap. They pivot to high-margin, hyper-limited collector's edition. Look at the Sword Art Online. Massive, expensive box set. They're bloated with hardcover art books and can push $200 a season.
It's explicitly engineered for a high-end premium market. It's a luxury tax on ownership.
Which leads to a nightmare scenario. A year ago, someone wanted to legally watch that older FMA Conqueror of Shambhala movie, the one with all those great interviews, but it was delisted from streaming because the platforms were prioritizing the newer Brotherhood continuity. The digital door was locked, so they turned to the physical market. But because of the scarcity trap, the average working-class fan had to pay well over $100 for a bare-bones, out-of-print used DVD on eBay.
The art survives in a Japanese vault, but practically, financially, it is functionally lost to the average person.
So, in the face of unchecked corporate greed, shifting supply chains, and gentrification, does the individual listener sitting in their living room actually possess any functional power left? What can one person do?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, yes, they do. Purchasing physical releases like that Dragon Ball Daima pre-order we mentioned at the start acts as a corporate stress test.
It's a data point.
Exactly. It proves to risk-averse boardrooms that a financially incentivized market for physical manufacturing still exists. A purchase speaks the absolute only language a boardroom understands: direct revenue.
Now, to be clear, we aren't demanding you bankrupt yourself buying $100 box set, but we need to understand the causality of our behavior. If we only choose frictionless streaming, corporations interpret that as a mandate to permanently dismantle the physical supply chain. And once those pressing plants close, they aren't coming back.
The friction of returning to logistics is just high. But beyond the economics, there is a practical value.
The storm analogy. I love this. If a violent storm knocks out your local broadband for 3 days, your streaming subscriptions are utterly worthless. You are completely cut off.
But a Blu-ray and a battery-powered laptop offer an unbroken, localized connection to the art independent of the global grid. It is total media autonomy.
And it extends beyond just playing a disc. There's this incredibly poetic grassroots example from Cosmoy.shop. They take rotting, unreadable manga and vintage anime magazines, stuff that would literally be thrown in a landfill, and they permanently encase the pages in hard resin to make coasters and trays.
It's a literal transmutation of media preservation.
Right. And building a physical shelf is exactly like that. It is a highly conscious, localized act of defiance against the corporate control tide of digital obsolescence.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have. Just to recap, we shattered the illusion of the digital ice. We explored the vicious boardroom economics of reverse logistics, driving everything to the cloud. We talked about the tragic loss of Pokémon, the DNR mutilation of Dragon Ball Z, the death of the economic engine funding bonus features, and the painful gentrification of our physical archives.
But we also recognize the immense actionable power our collective consumer behavior.
Which brings me to a final, deeply provocative thought for you to sit with. Think about the timeline of human history. If our ongoing access to the art that defined our childhoods is entirely tethered to a monthly subscription fee and the fleeting goodwill of corporate algorithms, what happens a century from now?
Will future cultural historians look back on the 2020s not as a utopian golden age of infinite access, but as a catastrophic digital dark age, where the most beloved, globally consumed shows on the planet simply vanished into the ether without leaving a single physical trace behind for them to study?
It's terrifying to think about.
It really makes the plastic discs on your shelf look far less like antiquated relics and far more like absolute necessities.
Exactly. So the next time you pour that coffee and sit on your couch, remember exactly who holds the keys to your digital library and what it truly means when you encounter that blank gray box. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Look at your shelves with a newfound appreciation, and we'll catch you on the next.